So we're back with another episode of the face rating series, and today we're going to do a facial analysis of Henry Cavill. Now, of course, a lot of you guys already know who he is and what kind of facial rating he might stand at. But you know what? Recently, I've been seeing some threads and commenters on looksmax.org saying retarded stuff like, "Oh, he is 8 at most," and the reasons they suggest for it are also equally retarded. So some of those reasons are limited to the eye area, and I'd get to that right now. So his canthal tilt is, as you can see, it's not a very up tilted eye area. His canthal tilt is somewhere around that 2.5 to 3 degree range. He also doesn't have a very aggressive hunter eye aspect ratio either. It's not above 3.25, but it's perfectly alright in the ideal range. It's around 2.9, so 2.8 to 3.6 is the ideal range. Now here's something that I needed to discuss. A lot of creators in this space, they use this quote-unquote ideal range for the positive canthal tilt between 5 and 8 degrees for men. The problem with this is they're using this from a population of models. The problem with doing that is models don't often have the most attractive features. Now this might sound like massive scope, but hear me out. With male models, the issue is the people who are scouting for these models, they are looking for striking features. They're not looking for features that would be objectively most attractive to women. So let's talk about a few examples, by the way. You see a lot of these guys with these very up-tilted eyes, like Elias Deput, Sean O'Prey, David Gandy, and then you have other guys like Jordan Barrett. Like, these guys have positive canthal tilts, strong positive canthal tilts. But what else do you also notice on their face? They don't have the most masculine jaw areas. Jordan Barrett has a shorter ramus. It's not a very short ramus, but it is on the shorter side. But more importantly, his mid-face ratio is so compact, like it's above 1.1, that it's feminized. Now, it's not a flaw per se, it's a feature, but it's not masculine. Elias Deput, he has very up-tilted eyes. What else do you notice? He has a narrow jaw, which is very steep, and again, he has a similar issue with his mid-face ratio as well. It's a bit too compact. Then you have Sean O'Prey, inverted gonions, steep gonial angle, steep jaw frontal angle, very tall chin. All of these problems start arising. David Gandy doesn't have a lot of these problems, but again, usually, very usually, you would see these inverted gonions. So David Gandy has that issue as well. So upturned eyes might be more striking, but objectively, the men who do have very upturned eyes, it turns out they don't really have the most masculine jaw areas. Something else I'd also like to add, that the averageness is so far off, it's off the charts. The average canthal tilt in the Caucasian population is 2.68 degrees in men, and it's about a degree higher in women. So up-tilted eyes might not be the most masculine, like I said before, and they might also not be the most attractive. So this is one of the ideas in the looks maxing circles that needs to be challenged to an extent. Like, after a while, when you start looking into which guys are the ones getting the most female attention, guys like Rami Malek, guys like Henry Cavill, guys like Hexam, the thing is, it's kind of clear that positive canthal tilt, unless it's like severely negatively tilted and you have droopy eyes and shit like that, a neutral canthal tilt is probably on the better side. So moving on, what is Henry Cavill without his immaculate jaw area? So his chin to philtrum ratio is 2.13. Now that might surprisingly seem like a low ratio considering his overall very masculine face. But hold up again. Any and all research that exists on the chin to philtrum ratio suggests that the most attractive ratio on men is somewhere between 2 to 2.25. Funny enough, it's actually women who look better with more aggressive chin to philtrum ratios like 2.5, stuff like that. The most masculine ratios, 1 is to 3, 1 is to 2.5, they're not considered the most attractive. So again, Henry Cavill is in the ideal range. This is his lips. This is the ratio of his lips, which I had to measure. Like, I have my limited tech, so it's around 1.25. So it's again not an issue. He does have Cupid's bow, but it's not a very deep Cupid's bow. So again, it's not a problem. So that is ideal again. This is the ear to nose ratio. Now here's something interesting. Henry Cavill does have a relatively compact midface. It's not compact to the extent that it's feminized, but it is compact. His nose is slightly shorter than his ear, but it's not a flaw. So it's still above 0.9. So it's not a flaw at all. It's still pretty much in the ideal range. 0.9 to 1.1 is the ideal range for your nose to ear ratio. Anything above that, the ears start looking too small or too big. Bitemporal width, right? The bitemporal width is around 85%. So while he might have a normal 2.5, which is the minimum acceptable for hairline recession, he's right about this. Anything higher than that, it's visibly recessed from the front profile. In most of his front profile pics, his hairline doesn't seem as recessed, but even then, he actually has a relatively narrow forehead, which is again not a bad thing. It is still in the ideal range, but on the lower end of it. So it's his bigonial width. I'm not pretty good at this. It's 94%. So his jaw is like almost too wide. It's a bit higher than the ideal range, but again, this is some problem that most people would want to have a jaw that is too wide. This is some problem, I guess. The jaw frontal angle is, again, this ties in with the fact that he has a very wide jaw. And while he has a jaw that is slightly outside of the ideal range, honestly, it's not a flaw at all. So anyone would be happy with that kind of a jaw area anyways. So he has a jaw frontal angle of around 105 degrees. So he has a chin to philtrum ratio and overall facial length to breadth ratio that is so much so in the ideal range that having a jaw this wide, his face has to compensate for it with a more obtuse jaw area. But again, this is a very masculine trait, but it would deduct some points from his harmony score, while this might add points in his angularity and masculinity scores, because these are things that are found exclusively in men, very robust jaws like this. Another thing that would deduct somewhat from his harmony score and again add to his dimorphism scores is the settedness of his cheekbones. His cheekbones are at about 74% cheekbone settedness. You can actually look at this right here. I can bring out these three blocks and this zygomal line. It's above the 2/3. It's above the 2/3, but it's not very high up. If it was in the middle of this, then it would have been like 80%, but it really ain't. So it's somewhere around that 72, 73%. So it's medium set cheekbones. But again, because his jaw is so wide, this creates an area for the OG's curve. If his jaw was actually a bit narrower, his OG's curve would have been non-existent. So even with the medium set cheekbones, he actually has an OG's curve that is as prominent as someone who would have high set cheekbones. If his cheekbones were about this low set, about this medium set, but his jaw was narrower, then the area of the OG's curve would end up getting reduced. So he has a relatively short but a very wide OG's curve as a result. So while these values might not seem like ideal on paper, they harmonize very well with each other, which create, and people think that like harmony is this some magical unexplainable thing. It's not. It's just that when you have a feature that falls quote unquote outside the ideal range, you need another feature that falls outside the quote unquote unideal range to make the face look as good, such as his cheekbones are on the lower set side, but his jaw is also on the wider side. So both of these unideal things kind of add up to make a very pleasing appearance. So that's what I needed to get, crystal clear. Moving on, his nose to overall face ratio. Yeah, he actually has a narrow nose. It's not too narrow. It's still in the ideal range anyways, so it doesn't really matter. So this ranges to this, I would say somewhere between 0.25 to 2.5 to 3 is the ideal range. 2.5 to 3 is the ideal range, and below 2.5 to 2, 2 to 2.5, and 3 to 3.6, that is still acceptable. It's just that the ratios lower than 0.25 would be more feminized, and the ratios above 3 would be more masculine. Eyebrow setedness, honestly, whoever the fuck needs to check that. Like, it's pretty evident he has low set eyebrows, so I wouldn't even check any further. It's just stupid to check this. The mid face ratio, pretty important. It's actually a perfect one-to-one. It's a perfect one-to-one. Most men tend to have longer mid faces, and most women tend to have these more compact mid faces. But this guy, he has a perfect 1:1 mid face ratio. So there's nothing that gets more perfect than this. Moving on to the next set of ratios and proportions. So as you can see right here, his mouth barely misses his iris. So it's not really a flaw. It's something that's nearly non-existent. But honestly, this would be an average ratio. it wouldn't. I would put this with a 5 out of 10 for this particular measurement. It's nothing special, but it's not a flaw either. It's not something good. His canthus, however, perfectly meets his nose. His nose perfectly flares out to meet his canthus. So compared to his eyes, he actually has a pretty good sized nose. Not too big, not too small. Then talking about the overall facial proportions, while it does have this perfect mid-face ratio, it's it's very edge to edge when it comes to the overall facial proportions. Like if it was like a millimeter to this side or that side, it would have been ideal. He is cutting he's splitting hairs with this one, by the way. So the ratio is 31.6, 31, and 37.4. Like half a percent here or there would have been an ideal ratio, but it's in the perfectly ideal range and on the extremely aggressive masculine side of the ratio. So more or less, by the way, I forgot, his facial width to height ratio is 1.96, perfectly all right. Facial width to height ratio is 1.96. His under eyes again are much like the average population. He doesn't have exceptional under eye support, but it's not bad either. The eyebrows are perfectly slightly positively tilted and spread out long enough, and they are thick enough. The mouth to nose ratio is also in the ideal range, but his mouth is, for the entirety of his face, his mouth is small. Compared to his nose, it's perfectly alright, but compared to the entirety of his mouth, it's a bit on the smaller side. Now, believe it or not, this is kind of a masculine feature. This is a masculine feature because higher testosterone men do tend to have smaller smiles. Smaller oral apertures. So this would technically deduct from his harmony score and add to his masculinity score. So for his overall facial harmony score, it would be around 8.75. For his facial dimorphism, and I'm pretty sure that no one is going to disagree with me on this, his facial dimorphism is 10 out of 10. No one is going to look at this face. No person on the planet is going to look at this face and ask, is that a woman? No one is going to do that. He also has blue eyes, which is sexually dimorphic. He has a slight recession as well in the hairline, but like his hairline is also extremely masculine. So you can just look at his face and almost no one is going to tell you that this is a female face. Exceptional angularity as well, exceptional jawline visibility, great OG's curve, 9.5 out of 10 for angularity, and miscellaneous features, upper eyelid exposure is not too much. Miscellaneous features are like 5% of the overall rating, so miscellaneous features get 9 out of 10. Now, the only reason I don't put it at 10 out of 10 is he is getting a bit older and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people would also tell me that one of the miscellaneous features that would deduct his points is the forehead wrinkles. Yes, this would deduct points from the miscellaneous features and skin quality, but again, forehead wrinkles are a sexually dimorphic trait. Men tend to have very strong frontalis muscles. Like look at the rest of his face. No other portion of his face shows wrinkling, but only this portion does. So while this is not ideal, again, this is masculine. The thing with this guy in particular is he is getting his points cut from some portions of the harmony and miscellaneous features, but they all kind of add up with the sexual dimorphism score. So overall verdict, something like 9.2 out of 10, 9.15 out of 10. He could have done a bit better with his cheekbone forward projection, but his cheekbones are extremely projected horizontally, so it's not a massive issue. So that's the final verdict. I did not do the side profile in this video, but I'm accounting for all of it. His side profile has genuinely just one single issue, that is his mandibular plane angle is on the flatter side, which is evident because he has a very tall ramus and combined with a relatively short chin. So all of this in taken account of 9.25, 9.2 out of 10, 9.15 to 9.2 out of 10. So see you guys in the next one, and tell me which phase to rate next.